This is Wildcat Chris Harris, one half of America's Most Wanted, TNA, NWA superstar, 7-time NWA Tag Team Champion.
Oh yeah, all around badass. I appreciate you being on the show with us, man. And my first thing for you is we just like to just jump right into it. And if you would hit us with what is one of your bad road stories that you'd say you have?
Well, man, I mean, there's so many. I mean, God, we live on the road, so there's so many bad road stories that kind of run together. But not to get too much in detail. But I mean, this is actually kind of a fun story. But it something that maybe a lot of people can relate to, you know, being that I was with TNA for so long, and the first night of TNA, the first pay-per-view in Huntsville, Alabama, Storm and I were part of it. Buddy of mine, Abyss, he was also a part of it, although he wasn't Abyss at that point. And then we could also include Wolfie D, who was going by Slash at that point. He was part of the New Church in the early days. But anyway, you know, this is a startup company, so we're all excited about it. And being on the road for so long, you know, you kind of find your partners on the road. So I was buddies with all these guys. Abyss and I kind of started together, so we kind of went into this hanging out together. But we all decided to get a room in Huntsville, and we rode together. So myself, Abyss, James Storm, and Wolfie D Slash, we had a room together. Well, Abyss and I kind of went into this thinking that we were going to, you know, we wanted to be prepared and go in with the best mind possible into this whole thing. You know, we were excited and we were looking forward to what this opportunity could really do for us. And not saying Storm and Wolfie didn't want to do that, but they decided that they wanted to go out that night. And, you know, and I'm usually, actually, Abyss and I are usually one of those guys. You know, we'll go out and have a good time and party. And, you know, we were part of that crowd. But for that night, we wanted to get a good night's sleep and get up the next morning, work out, and get to the building. And we were ready to go. Well, Storm and Wolfie, they decided to go out. And I don't know what time it was, man. Maybe 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Who the hell knows? And Storm had a gimmick going at the time. I had worked with him many times before we were a tag team and singles. And his gimmick was he would go to the ring, and he had these cat guns where he would shoot off, and you know that was his cowboy thing. And the crowd loved it. It was a huge thing. So of course he was packed with that, prepared for it. Well, I'm not sure what those guys had done. You know, they had obviously had a few drinks, and so they came back, and they were going to, you know, go to sleep, and we were all going to get up and do our thing the next day. But the way they came in, Abyss and I were probably sound asleep, and Storm decided to come in, and they busted through there, and all of a sudden those guns were going off, bam, 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 and Abyss and I just kind of flew up in our, I mean, you can only imagine what the scene was. I mean, it's not like being woke up to, you know, I have to go pee or something like that. You're waking up to gunshots, man. I mean, we're thinking we're being broke into, and somebody's coming in shooting. I mean, and I laugh at myself, but when you think of the character Abyss and you think of somebody coming in with the gunshots coming in like that boy, you'd have thought he cowered so much, and it was just the funniest thing ever. So we laugh about it now, but I consider that a bad road story because I would never want to go through that again. So
no, I totally get it, man. Oh man, yeah, Abyss is a big dude, man. He actually had a match at AML against a buddy of mine, Zane Dawson. Earlier, this is probably 10 years ago or so. But yeah, Abyss is definitely a big dude, man. Like, so to hear him being like that, I mean, but I get it though, dude. I mean, guns scare me, man. So I'm with that. Awesome. So yeah, appreciate that story. That's a fun one. So the next one would be, what would be a good road story? What would be your best road story?
Well, let's follow up from that one. So that I'll pick this road story because it follows up with Abyss. poor guy, you know, just he gets picked on so many times. So we were on the road, and we were working for a company, and we had some big names involved. We had Kurt Hennig was involved, and Sandman was involved. Barry Windham was involved. It was kind of in between the when after WCW went down, which I was there for the last year. So WCW went down, and before TNA started. So there was a lot of just things going on in the business where you know, people were trying to pick up what they could. WWE was the only game in town. But anyway, like I said, Abyss and I started together. We were road partners for the longest time, and so we were hanging out with these guys. And we did a show. We afterwards, I think we were at the hotel bar. We just kind of went back and had, you know, having a good time, you know, and then we're of course enjoying our time with legends such as Kurt and Barry, and you know, Sandman was there. I think if Sandman was there, it may have been in Philly. I'm not sure because he had a connection where we were at the ECW arena at one point. But anyway, you know, we're hanging out and on the road during Abyss and I coming up. I was always a beer drinker. I love the shots, but Abyss was always a Jack and Coke guy. And after getting to know Kurt a little bit, you know, and plus, you know, come to find out, you know, this is like a wrestler's drink, the shots of Jack. And this is way before we knew, you know, what the kind of gamester Kurt Hennig was, and you know, all the ribbon he did, and but I was getting to know him, and you know, Kurt was such a cool guy, man. I got to know him really well during his last couple of years. But we're all hanging out, and of course, me, I like to stir the shit, so I'm trying to do that. And I was telling Abyss, because he's a Jack and Coke guy. I was telling Kurt, I said, you know, Abyss said he could drink you under the table any day with that Jack. And Abyss is trying to pull me aside. He's like, Cat, you know, shut the fuck up, man. Stop doing this. And so I just kept stirring the pot, man. I just kept stirring it. You know, Kurt's having his drinks, and I was just like, man, Kurt, I said, I know you're a Jack guy. I said, but Abyss, he's been a Jack guy for a long time, and he said he could take you at any point and drink you under the table. And I just kept moving that on, man. And finally, Kurt took it, and he was like, all right, we're going to do this. And Abyss was like, oh my God. So, you know, from then on, Kurt started getting shots from the bar, and every so often he'd bring shots back, and him and Abyss, they'd do their shot, you know, because of course you're not going to say no to Kurt Hennig. So, you know, they were doing their shots, and probably participated once in a while, but the whole game was with them two. Every, I don't know what it was, every 15, so every 10 minutes, whatever it was, they were getting their shots going, man. And we all had rooms there, so we were safe. And so by the end of the night, let's just jump fast forward to that. You know, I'm carrying the boy back to his room, you know, me carrying, you know, taking a 300-pound man back to his room. And, you know, come to find out that, you know, and anybody that knows Kurt, they would understand this, but come to find out the entire time that Kurt was bringing those shots, you know, he was bringing shots of Jack for Abyss, but he was bringing shots of iced tea for himself. So at the end of that, Kurt Hennig was just fine. You would have never known he was drinking all that. So he was fine. He was, of course, he was giving Abyss shit the whole time. He was like, you know, what's wrong with you? Why can't you stand up? And, you know, Kurt's perfection, man. He was walking out of there just fine. And Abyss had to be carried back to his room. So,
oh man,
good story for you, man.
That's great.
I feel like I'm picking on Abyss right now, man, but that's some good stuff.
Oh man, I love it. We'll have to get you'll have to get me in touch with Abyss. We'll get him on here so he can you know, he can give us his stuff. Yeah,
I'd love to hear the counter to all that, man.
Yeah, for sure.
He'd probably throw me under the bus, but he knows it's true.
No, that's great. That is awesome. All right, so that's it for the road story portion, man. We always like to get at least one or two, because like those are things that are just so fun, you know. No one really knows those things, so I appreciate you sharing. So we're gonna jump into.
Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, that's things that people, you know, even wrestling fans, they don't know about the road stories, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's my whole thing, man. I really, because I get to meet so many wrestlers, which is great, and like hearing like Ricky Morton and like Robert Gibson tell stories and stuff when we're at the bar and stuff, and I'm just like, I was like, I need to hear more of these, and that's literally what sparked this whole process. So yeah, the next thing, I just got a couple of questions. Some of them,
you wish you had hours with guys like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. I talked to Larry Zabisco at the Gathering one year for like an hour and a half, and it was like one of the best hour and a halves of my life. So yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Larry's the best, man. He loves to talk about himself, man, but he's got some great road stories.
Oh yeah. So first question, when you are on the road, where is your go-to place to eat?
Oh wow, man. I'd have to say, I mean, the go-to in any town. I mean, there's always certain things you look for, but I'm a Waffle House guy, man, because
Nice.
I know they're everywhere and I know what they have. So there were so many holidays and things like that where everything is closed, but Waffle House. So I've had many Christmases and Thanksgivings and things like that, and Waffle House is always there, man. So that's my go-to, man. I always go there, and I know I can eat. It's funny to say with Waffle House, but you can at least semi-healthy, with chicken and eggs or something like that. So there's my go-to restaurant, man.
Gotcha.
That's always good for us.
So I got to ask you a follow-up question, or my buddy would kill me. So what is your standard Waffle House order?
So it'd be chicken and eggs. I'd get some scrambled eggs. Probably I might add to it, just 3-4 eggs, something like that. But that would be it. Hash browns would come with that. So I'd have that, but I never put all the junk in there. That's just there for the side. And if I have any toast at all, it's wheat toast. I'm pretty basic, man, but
Gotcha.
that's usually what I go with there, because I'm just that's just such a go-to, and I know I can eat healthy there with chicken and eggs. So that was always my go-to, man.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good deal. Yeah, I'm a steak and eggs guy, so I'm with you on that though. So the next one's a two-part question. Who was your first favorite wrestler, and who is your favorite wrestler now?
So growing up, I have a two-parter in the first one. Now, growing up, when I was a kid and a fan and I was watching it, Randy Savage was my guy. I wasn't a Hogan guy. I wasn't a Warrior guy. Savage was my guy. I just loved everything he was doing. And that was when, you're young enough to where they're like superheroes to you.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started getting into the business and I started appreciating a little bit more and knowing what I was looking for, Bret Hart was my guy. I really admired everything he was doing. And so I really started looking at him. So growing up, that was kind of my fan base. Nowadays, man, my career was so much revolved around tag teams that I started to, that's kind of how my mind works now. And so I look at a lot of that because I just feel like so much of the tag team art, well, the art of wrestling in general is lost, but the art of tag team wrestling is really gone right now. And, it just seems to be just so much of a spot fest. But so I have to say that FTR is like the team I like to watch, man, because I feel like, kind of like what Storm and I did in the early 2000s, where, tag teams were kind of revolved around two singles guys being thrown together for a short period of time. And Storm and I got together and we started doing the kind of things that we learned from the 80s, the Rock and Roll Express. And, we were talking about those guys earlier, just all those great tag teams of the 80s. That's what we knew. So that's what we were doing. And that's what got so much of the attention to where, hey, these guys know, these guys are great to watch. And I feel like nowadays with the art lost, FTR, they're the modern day tag team, but they use so much of the old school tag team art that I just love watching those guys. And so they're the team that I like to watch nowadays.
Man, Wildcat, I can't explain how much we're alike. So when I was a kid, I was an Ultimate Warrior kid because, again, he was that big beastie superhero, right? But as I started growing up, yeah, Macho Man was such a cool dude. Like, I enjoyed his gimmick more after I got a little older. And yeah, I'm a Bret guy as well. I liked Anvil a lot, and Bret came along with Anvil. So being a bigger kid all my life, I was a big Anvil fan. But yeah, Bret and his whole style, especially when he started his singles career, was amazing. And for you to say FTR, I am one of 20 people that own the FTR belt that was made. They are by far one of my favorite guys.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. So like, it's just like you're saying your answers. I was like, oh my goodness. Like I didn't see that coming, man. So it was really cool to hear that. Yeah. I love the old school style. I'm a huge fan of tag teams. 90% of my wrestling shirts are tag team shirts. Like I own a lot of
Oh, that's
tag team
really cool,
shirts. Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So I'm with that. That's so
Hey, man,
great.
I've always been it's like, we can be a fan of wrestling, and that's awesome that we all are. But I've always been one of those guys that's like, of course, because I lived it, but you can get so much more out of a tag team match, and you can make it twice as exciting and twice as much fun because you have four guys instead of two. Man, there's so much more
Yeah.
to make the fans just really get into it. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate that, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah, just so you get twice as much fun out of a tag team match, for the fans' entertainment. So,
Oh no,
you know,
totally.
yeah. So I appreciate you, being so, you just being a fan of that and just appreciating the art of it, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no, definitely. I just yeah, I'm such a big fan of that, man. It's great stuff. So couple more questions left. So the next one is, who is your favorite person to wrestle? And if you have multiple, that's fine. I always just say person because sometimes some guys are like, hands down is this person. But I've had guys give me like 10 answers as well. So
I might have a few because I was most known in a tag team with America's Most Wanted. So, two of our favorite guys to wrestle were the Naturals. I have to say that because our feud really put us on the map. We had great matches. When Team 3D came in, the Dudleys, um, just them being as big as they are, and they can't coming into TNA, we're able to feud with them and get something going there. I really appreciated our matches that we had with them. But going singles, well, back to the tag team, Triple X in the cage. People know that so much. So that was one of my favorite matches. We had two cage matches with them, and both of them are two of my favorites. If I went singles, though, man, I had a great match with Jeff Jarrett for the NWA World Championship. I really appreciated that because it kind of showed that even though I was part of a tag team, it showed that I could still hang in singles, and the people believed in me, and they really were supporting me to become NWA World Champion.
nice.
I had once Storm and I brought up the matches we had, man. I mean, not just the chemistry as a tag team, but we had chemistry as opponents too. So I really loved working with Storm. We had a classic Texas Death Match that a lot of people remember today. So that was awesome. But one of the guys I have the most chemistry with, I mean, it's funny that it seems to be a rolling subject here, is that we didn't have a lot on the mainstream, with TV and pay-per-view and that, but it's Abyss. We came up together and we worked together for so many years before we actually hit it big. That we had just such great chemistry. Like every new town we went to, we were able to work with each other. And but once we got to the mainstream, I was part of the tag team. He was a singles guy, so we really didn't cross paths many times. As far as other people getting to see that, but I had really good chemistry with Abyss, with Storm, with Jeff Jarrett. I learned so much from that guy. But as a tag team, it was I loved working with Triple X and the Naturals. I have a lot of answers, man. I know that's
Yeah,
not what
no, it's totally cool, man. No, what I really
you
love
hear, but
is
that's
yeah.
So many people I can name.
Yeah, no, what I really like, man, is like the thing that I'm learning talking to you this time is like you and Abyss's friendship. Like I would have never said, hey, these guys are probably buddies, right? Like, but I think that's awesome. And that's another thing that I get to learn is like the guys that travel together and like who are actually like friends that you've never seen. Like you said, I've never saw you fight Abyss, right?
Yeah.
So like I bet that would be an awesome match to see. But yeah, so I think that's really cool that you learning information like that. So the next two are pretty wild questions. So the first one is, do you have a Ricky Morton story?
Yeah, I got one I could tell.
Awesome.
This is a safe one. It's funny because I was just with Ricky this past weekend. So, it's always a pleasure to be able to hang with Ricky. Storm and I got to work with the Rock and Roll Express twice, both in TNA. And match that we had with those guys, we were kind of going over some stuff, and you can imagine, we're up and comers, so we're trying to make a name for ourselves, and we get the honor of working with a team such as Rock and Roll Express that we kind of grew up on. Rock and Roll Express, they're old school. They can still go, but they still have that old school style. And so we're trying to, kind of put our minds together. And as simple as this sounds, it just was something that stood out to me, and I still talk about it to this day. But so Storm and I were going over some things, and there was a time where Ricky was going to catch Storm's foot, and Storm was going to give he was describing it like this: you catch my foot, I'll give you the enziguri. And as common as that is nowadays, back in 03, Ricky Morton was like, "You're going to give me a what?" And Storm's like, I'm going to give you an enziguri. And he's like, well, what the hell is that? And, if Ricky Morton, you could picture him doing that. And Storm, being the young, just young guy that, is trying to do something. He's like, I'm going to kick you in the head, and Ricky looked at him. He said, well, then just tell me you're going to kick me in the head. So, that's really it, man. Not much to it, but it's just funny to hear, when Ricky, and it's like he's just, man, such a cool guy, and he just, at the time, it's definitely more common now, but in 03, when you say enziguri, we didn't think about it because that was common to us youngsters.
Yeah.
But you say that to Ricky Morton, he's like, what the hell? What do you mean you're going to give me an enziguri? And Storm's like, I'm just going to jump up and kick you in the head. Ricky was like, well, then just tell me you're going to kick me in the head, man. So,
yeah, no. I totally relate to that, man. I talking to Ricky on a regular, so that's kind of funny. I assume you were probably hanging out with Ricky on Saturday then, right?
Yeah, this past Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, so because I was hanging out with him on Sunday at RWA here in North Carolina, so.
Oh,
yeah.
wow, man, okay.
yeah. So yeah.
No, I take that back. I was with him on Friday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but so he was here in North Carolina on Sunday, him and Carrie, and yeah, I mean, I talk to Ricky every time I see him, and yeah, he's a straight shooter, man. So yeah, those little jokester stuff like that, he'll come out with that left and right. That's
so
great.
If you know him, yeah, man, you can see where I'm coming from with that story. I mean, you'll understand.
Yeah, that's the reason why I asked, because I've seen Ricky in the past year. I've probably seen Ricky at least 8 or 9 times, and I talk to him every time I see him. So yeah, I get some good Ricky stuff all the time, and I've gotten to know his humor, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
So the other question is, do you have a George South story?
Oh no, man, I don't. I've never worked with George South, and I've heard some great things. He was there during some of the the good years with WWE, but I really don't. I never worked with him, so I really don't, man.
No, yeah, and that's cool. Yeah, so George is huge here in North Carolina, right? And a lot of my indie guys, some of them trained underneath him, or he's been around a lot. So I always ask that question because a lot of people have them, and you just never know who. Because I mean, like even guys like he introduced a couple of my buddies to Great Muta. Like a couple of my wrestling buddies to Great Muta because him and Great Muta are friends. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like yeah. So like. Yeah, I never know who George knows, and then when I find out, I'm always impressed.
He's one of those guys, though. You to sit under the learning tree of George South, man. That would be, you're blessed to do that.
Oh yeah, my son's actually amateur wrestling right now. He is 10, and when he turns 16, George is going to get his hands on him first. So yeah, really excited about that. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. All right, so my final question is, if you could only watch one match for the rest of your life, what match would that be?
Yeah, man, there's so many matches that you want to go to for that, but I have to go back to the original one that really turned me into wrestling, man. And I know this is a very common answer because a lot of people have this, but Ricky the Dragon and Randy Savage, man, WrestleMania 3, that was the match, and I was becoming a wrestling fan at that point, maybe starting in 86. And then once 87 started hitting, and, we always a lot of us, look back and see now we can understand, what was really happening during those years where, WrestleMania 3 is really what put wrestling on the map, man. Well, WrestleMania did, but then WrestleMania 3 and that match, Hogan and Andre, there's no doubt about it. That's what sold that place. but Ricky and Randy, they stole the show. And when I started watching that, man, and for somebody like me, a fan, of course, I was into the whole Hogan Andre thing, but when I saw that match, and for a fan to really get into that kind of match and appreciate what they were doing, that's when I was hooked, man. I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I don't know if I was thinking about doing it at that point, but I was definitely hooked as a fan. And that's what hooked me as a Randy Savage fan. So yeah, I always have to go back to that, man, because I'm a big, and I think a lot of us are nowadays, since everything's kind of out in the open, but the false finishes just really get to me. When you can get the crowd on the edge of their seat and really buy into everything that's going on, that's when that you're working wrestling, you're working, and there's a whole art that goes along with that. Back in '87, there weren't a lot of the run-ins and the belt finishes, just things like that. I know George the Animal Steel was out there, but they worked, man, and they worked so well. And if you listen to the crowd, there were so many of the simple pins they did that the crowd really were into felt. And so I have to go back to that, man. I mean, there's been so many great matches since then that we could always talk about, but I have to go back to the one that really hooked me because it still stands the test of time today.
No,
If wrestling fans will go back and watch that, I think even knowing what they know nowadays, going back there, and if they watch start to finish, and it definitely helps if you know the program, because the whole story that they were doing with Savage taking out Steamboat's throat and all that. I mean, it was a feud. It wasn't just a great match; it was a feud. So going into it, wanting to see that match and seeing Ricky tear Savage apart, and he had been Intercontinental Champion at that point, one of the longest. I don't know what the record. Well, we know about the records, but at that time it was over a year. I know that. So for Steve, it was awesome, man. I mean, it was just that I always go back to that. That's one of my favorites, and to this day, if I had to watch over, I would watch that match over again. I never get tired of it.
That's awesome. I'm actually gonna go rewatch that. I was every time I think about WrestleMania 3, I was pretty young back then. I was probably, I don't know, 7. So yeah, I think I was 7. So yeah, so like I mean everything that I remember is Hulk Hogan slamming Andre, right? But yeah, being a Macho Man and a Ricky, we get Ricky around here in Charlotte all the time. So in North Carolina. So yeah, nice. I actually saw him like 2 months ago. I got him to sign one of my figures for me. But yeah, so great guys, and his whole the dragon, his whole character and his whole gimmick was one of my things too, because I'm a big fan of that stuff. And but yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that match because I get what you're saying there, and I totally understand. I understand that kind of like that logic. So, you are the first one to bring up a Macho Man match, though, and I've done 31 of these now. So that's awesome,
wow, man! Really?
Yeah. Because I get a lot of Shawn Michaels matches, a lot of Brett matches, some Rock and some Hogan matches. But I think that might be my first Macho Man. Yeah.
And I won't take anything away from those matches because I've enjoyed those.
Yeah. There was I think Terry Funk and Ric Flair.
But Savage and Steamboat. Yeah, the I Quit match. Yeah. I loved it, man. Yeah.
I mean, and all those answers are great answers, but I do believe I kind of remember that, and that's why I'm like, I need to go refresh myself because I bet you I would. I'd probably still pop for it right now.
As much as we all became a fan of Randy Savage, once he became babyface and he was champion, and even in WCW days, a lot of guys, remember him from that. But if you go back that long ago, man, and take a look at that match from start to finish, man. It's incredible.
Yeah, I definitely will, man. No, and so that's great, man.
Well, since we're talking about Abyss, I thought there's something else you might like. Another story came to mind, so I just figured I'd throw it in.
Go for it.
Since you're enjoying these so much. So Abyss and I are on a road trip. I'm not sure where we were going. I'm going to guess somewhere like Kentucky, Tennessee kind of area, and it's just 2 of us, and we're on one of those back roads where there's no street lights. We're just kind of going to the two lane highway, and we're probably listening to music, telling road stories, and of course we're having some drinks, because that's what you did back then. And so we're driving down, and it was just one of those road rage kind of things. Somebody came up from behind and started following us real close, and I was driving, he was in the passenger seat, so they're following us real close, and the brights and all that kind of stuff. So of course, guys like us were like, what the fuck, man, what's going on here? And so I want to, I got mad, so I'm hitting the brakes, seeing what this guy's going to do. So then they go around us, and they're one of those smart asses. So they go around, and okay, here they are in front of us now. Well, then we get up, and now they slow down, so we go around them. And I mean, it was just one of those things where it's just irritating. Like, what do these guys want? And they're obviously messing with us, man. I mean, they're really they're fucking with us, and there's nowhere to pull over. Nothing like that. Well, we go on this for several miles, and then finally, we see a light up ahead, and it's a gas station, and Abyss is like pulling right there, because at this point he's hot, man. I mean, you get a big man like that hot, and I'm already concerned because I'm the one driving, so I don't want any kind of problems with the driving. He's like pulling right there, and so I was like, all right, let's do this, man. We don't know what to. I pull into that gas station, and we pull up, and I pull in, man. And as soon as I do, he's already, getting out of the car. Before I even have my seatbelt off, the other car pulls in behind us. They hit the brakes right in front of us. And before I even I had my seatbelt off, before I could get out of the car, Abyss is already out of the passenger seat on his way back. This car hits the brakes. They see that a fucking monsters coming after them, and they didn't even get out of the car, man. They hit it right in reverse and started pulling back because I hadn't even got out of the car, so it was all him. They started reversing, and the best part of the story is apparently there was another car that came in right behind them, probably to get gas, innocent bystander. They pull in, so when they hit reverse, they crashed right into the car. Oh. And so there was a complete accident wreck, and Abyss went from monster getting ready to kill somebody to bellying over laughing so much at him. His anger went away, man, because he just started laughing his ass off at what those guys just did. So he hopped back in the car. He's like, let's go. And so we just continued on, man. And, I don't know what they had to deal with the entire accident kind of thing. But, yeah, we were talking about Abyss so much, man. And that's you love the road stories. So that happened to hit. So I figured I'd include that in, man.
No, that was great, dude. That's like a karma's a bitch story right there for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah. Especially like, it took away the violence. Like, I mean, yeah, Abyss is a big dude. So like, they did not know who they were messing with, right? Like, that's all that comes down to. They're like, oh, we fucked up.
No, I mean, if he gets out of the car and I get out, I can guess what you're doing, but I hadn't even got out of the car yet. So that was completely, he stepped out and they saw what was coming at him, and they didn't even want to challenge anything. They immediately hit it in reverse, and they were going to get the hell out of there. But, they had another thing coming, man, because somebody was right behind them that they weren't paying attention to.
That is so great, man. No, yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate the bonus. I appreciate you being on here with me and taking the time. Really enjoyed the stories. They're definitely great. And I we'll keep in touch. I hope I get to pick your brain a little more on some other stuff. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man.